and I'd start to hear my stomach going gurgle, gurgle, gurgle. And I think, oh no, it started, and I've still got 3 hours and 45 minutes to go before I can get out of here. What's going to happen? And so I would literally have to, when I was walking around, I'd literally have to start walking like a penguin because I couldn't trust what was going to happen. Today is my 2-year anniversary. 2 years of carnivore and 2 years of being sober. So I wanted to give you an update, but I wasn't sure how to do it. Should I interview myself? How did you find carnivore? Should I get Bellshine to give you an update? He says he doesn't do wet farts anymore. I don't believe that. I've never not done a wet fart. Eventually I settled on giving you a regular update. And I've got a few things that I want to talk about. How I found carnivore, what carnivore has done for me, some of the difficulties I've faced that hopefully can help you, and some advice based on my experience and the experiences of the hundreds of other carnivores that I've spoken to. But first, how did I find carnivore? So it all goes back to June 3, 2022. Now, I've got my diary here. So you can see if we go to June 3 of 2022, I've got two things in this diary here. The first one is doctor, and the second one is no beer, no junk. Now, I don't know why there's an exclamation mark or an exclamation point after everything I've got written here, but there is. I was surprised to see the doctor, no beer, no junk. Okay, I certainly wasn't feeling that way at this time. But as you can see, the important thing to note is on June 3, 2022, I went to see the doctor. Now, when I went to see the doctor, he had 2 pieces of news for me. I was most likely pre-diabetic, and I had a drinking problem. Now, spoiler alert, I knew I had a drinking problem. And over the years, I'd thought to myself, I need to stop drinking. I need to get over this problem. But it was always one of those things that was, okay, after this weekend, or tomorrow will be the first day, something like that. And it never, ever got resolved. I never got resolved. It never got started to be resolved. So I had a drinking problem. I was probably pre-diabetic, and I should have known that as well, given my diet. My diet consisted of a lot of ultra-processed foods, and a lot of those ultra-processed foods were foods with a lot of added sugar, stuff like ice creams and ice cream sandwiches and cakes and stuff like that. Stuff that was very easy to consume when I was feeling kind of down. And unfortunately, feeling down was basically at the end of every day. I was doing a job that in some ways was a bit soul-crushing, and at the end of the day, when things were kind of their toughest, I was feeling most tired, I would always say to myself, it's okay, just remember, in a few hours or in an hour's time, you'll be able to relax. You'll be able to have that beer. You'll be able to have that ice cream. You'll be able to have that bag of potato chips. You'll be able to have that cake, whatever. That's how I got through each day. And so each day would be finish work, walk back to the train station. On the way back to the train station, I'd stop at the convenience store. I'd buy a 500 milliliter can of beer, and I would buy a packet of potato chips or an ice cream or something like that, perhaps sometimes fried food. And that would be my evening meal. That would be my dinner. And this is like, 10 o'clock in the evening. So I'd sit on the train, I'd enjoy the beer, I would eat the snacks or the junk food, and I needed to change trains as well. So I would get off the first train, I would change trains, and that was time for, if the train wasn't there, another beer. And often I would miss a train just so I could go into the convenience store at the next station and buy a beer again. So my life was not going in the right way. So when the doctor told me that I was most likely pre-diabetic and I needed to control my drinking, I knew that it was a serious problem. I just hadn't admitted it to myself. But hearing it from the doctor made me realize, I need to do something about this. I need to change things. So I decided that I was going to make a very strong change. And the reason that kind of pushed me into making that strong change is the doctor wanted to address the drinking first. He wanted to put me on a medication which is called antabuse. And basically, this medication acts to make you violently ill if you are to drink alcohol. So you take the drug, doesn't do anything, but then if you have a beer or a vodka or whatever, all of a sudden you get really, really sick. One of the side effects of this is, apart from getting sick, one of the side effects of this drug is potential death. And, that kind of really woke me up that he wanted to put me on a drug this serious. So what I did is I decided I was going to control myself as best I knew how, and that was going to be through a keto diet. Now, why did I choose to go on a keto diet? The reason I chose that was because I'd done low carb and keto in the past, and I understood very well the way my body responded to that way of eating. And the way my body responded was always that, of course, I felt better, but I also had this strong sense of self-control. I always had this sense of being able to say no to things that on an ordinary day, on an ordinary diet, I would never be able to say no to, whether that was drinking, whether that was smoking, whether that was impulse buying, whatever it was. I was much more in control of my decisions and my emotions and that kind of thing when I was doing a low carbohydrate style diet. So I decided to put myself on a low carb diet on June 3. So as you can see from the calendar, from this day on, I've just written it as no beer, no junk on every day. And this was kind of a little bit of a motivational thing for me. And the reason I did that was I wanted to just have that little bit of extra motivation. So just being out at the end of the day, being able to say, okay, today, no beer, no junk, that kind of was a little bit of reinforcement. So I did that, and I continued on, and I felt a lot better, and I had a lot more self-control. But that didn't completely clear up the feelings of I need to have a drink. What really helped me was also changing the way I did things. So instead of walking past that convenience store on the way home, I took the long way around and avoided the convenience store so that it took much longer to get back to the station. I often missed the train and had to wait longer at the station, but I didn't have to have that temptation of, oh, well, there's a beer there. Come on, you can just have the beer and we'll start this again tomorrow kind of thing. I didn't get that feeling, so that helped me to get through it. And of course, every day your feeling of comfort around not drinking or not doing whatever it is you're trying to give up gets stronger and stronger. And with the self-control of the low carb way of eating, that really helped as well. One of the problems happened though very early on was that I was experiencing a lot of bathroom issues. Going to the bathroom more often than not, pretty much soon after I'd eaten. And so I'd have my breakfast, which is made up of eggs and beef, or eggs and bacon, and also mixed in with that was vegetables. And because you need your vitamin C, right? Or at least that's what I've been told. So, I was making sure that I had vegetables with lots of vitamin C in them. And I'd have breakfast, feel good, and very quickly thereafter I was running to the bathroom. And I was wondering what's happened. Maybe keto doesn't agree with me anymore. Maybe I'm allergic to eggs. Maybe fat isn't good for me, something like that. I started to look into it, and I eventually started to come across videos about carnivore. So I was already kind of watching videos here, there, and everywhere on keto. So I think it was probably once I started searching for this is what I'm eating, and plants and stuff were vegetables that were being talked about, I landed on more carnivore type content. One of the videos that I landed on was one by Ken Berry, and it was a video where he was talking about particular types of vegetables and how they can cause gastric distress. And a lot of the the vegetables he was talking about were ones that I was eating. And technically they were probably fruits anyway because they got seeds, but that's by the by. So I was eating a lot of nightshades, and those have a lot of lectins and things in them that are not very good for your gut. And I think as a result, that's why I was in the bathroom more regularly than I wanted to be. So I thought, okay, well, I mean, I'm not tied to vegetables, and there seems to be an argument here for not needing them at all. So I'm gonna see how I go without them. So I took them out, and I've never put them back in. So on my schedule, you can see here, I'd started to go OMAD as well. So at this stage, I'm OMAD, and I'm carnivore, and it just continues on. And and like there's some days that I'm even writing down what I had: 6 eggs, cheese, 2 cans of sardines. Yum yum. So that's how I found carnivore 2 years ago. So what has it done for me? Well, at this stage, 2 years in, at this stage, I've lost 34 pounds of weight. Now, this is significant. I mean, some people have lost a million bazillion pounds of weight, and so 34 pounds seems pretty tame. But that 34 pounds, I think one of the reasons that's so important to me is I lost 34 pounds within, I guess, about 3 months. And that 34 pounds has stayed off the whole time. I've never put that back on. I've never gone up, and there's never been any kind of yo-yo. It's just been, I've just stayed at this level. So I started around 80 something kilos. Unfortunately, I didn't weigh myself on the first day, or the first few days. But I started around 80 point something, which is 179 pounds. And I got down to 66 kilos, which is about 145 pounds. So I've lost 34 pounds in total, and that's maintained throughout. And if you see my before and after pictures, you can see there's a huge difference. There's a massive difference between, especially in my gut, what I was like and what I'm like now. And speaking of the gut, one of the things that I think is one of the nicest things about being on carnivore is just having that flat stomach, just having nothing protruding out anymore. And I think this could be down to the alcohol as well, but I can't remember ever not feeling uncomfortable around my middle. It's always felt uncomfortable. It's always felt like clothes didn't really fit. Things were too tight. My belt was too tight, no matter how much I loosened it. And if it didn't feel tight, it was because it was like halfway around, down near my ankles, because I couldn't pull it up. I couldn't get it up any higher than that. So that's been a massive thing for me. A couple other things. Of course, there's no sign that I'm pre-diabetic anymore. My arthritis is gone. I had arthritis in my left knee, and that was causing me so much pain. It was a bone-on-bone feeling of pain, and I was struggling to walk, struggling to get upstairs, struggling to get downstairs. I mean, I'll be 50 this year, and I don't see 50 as old. Of course it's older than 21, but I don't see it as old. And not even at 50, and being unable to walk down the stairs without holding the handrail, just feeling so lethargic by the time I got to the top of the stairs, things like that. It was so depressing. And that's all just gone.
Haven't been able to do that for decades. Thanks, carnivore.
That feeling, that arthritis is completely gone. And that was within 3 to 4 months that disappeared. And it just, one day I was like, this doesn't hurt anymore. What happened? I had to run across the road because the traffic lights were changing, the crosswalk lights were changing. And so started running across the road. And normally when I would start running, I'd get this, or when I was about to start running, I'd get this signal in my head that was like, don't do this, it's going to hurt. And so I would just kind of stop, or I would walk as fast as I could, or something like that, right? But as I started to run, the signal came, but the pain wasn't there. There was no feeling there at all, and it was just so strange. And I was like, okay, keep going. And the feeling was, it was just unreal. It was like being, back in junior high school again, or something, when I was running on the oval or something like that. So that has been probably the biggest thing for me, is getting rid of the arthritis. Additionally, I was having trouble walking because my right side is weaker than my left. When I was 17 years old, I had a hemorrhagic stroke. And since then, I've had, weakness on my right side. So you get the story from the doctors that, after 6 months, that's 6 months to a year, that's basically the most healing you're going to get. There's going to be nothing else happens. And that was my experience, like I did make improvements after the stroke happened, and I did get to a point where I was feeling a little bit stronger, but it never got any better than that. And so I've lived for more than 30 years now, with that weakness. And what that meant was constantly tripping over, not being able to wear flip-flop shoes because I can't lift my right leg enough to keep the shoes on properly. If I did, I'm more likely to trip over on my right side and like skin my legs or my feet or something like that, on the concrete or whatever as I fall over. So it was always but it was something I lived with. It was always frustrating, but something I just lived with. It's just part of me. I had to accept it. And I'd love to say it's gone. It hasn't gone, but what carnivore has done is it's almost like a restart, like it was frozen in time, kind of, after a year after the stroke, it was just stayed in that place and didn't improve at all. And then once I started eating lots of red meat, all of a sudden things started getting better. And you might say, well, that could be you not drinking alcohol either. But, actually after the stroke, I didn't have alcohol for a good 3 or 4 years after that. I didn't drink at my 18th birthday. 18 is the legal age for drinking in Australia. I didn't drink on my 18th birthday. And that's because following the stroke and a subsequent operation I had on my head, I had to take Dilantin, and you can't drink when you're taking Dilantin. A massive improvement on my right-hand side. I don't have a limp. The limp is much improved. I don't limp as much anymore. My right side is much stronger than it was before. My reaction time on my right side is much stronger than it was before, or much faster than it was before. And things are getting much better. Another thing that's really improved is I don't have gum disease anymore. And not having gum disease anymore means that my teeth aren't sensitive, my gums aren't sensitive anymore. My gums don't bleed when I brush my teeth, even if I use one of those rock hard hotel toothbrushes. And also, I don't have smelly breath. And the first time I noticed this was when my wife stopped recoiling when I was standing close to her talking. And I was like, hang on, you don't do this anymore. You don't move back anymore when I start talking to you. And she said, oh, yeah. And we realized it was because my breath didn't stink anymore. So that's always a plus point. When your wife's not going like this, or when other people are not going like this when you start talking, that's a good sign. So along with the gastrointestinal problems that cleared up after I stopped having vegetables, I think generally not having junk in my diet has also helped me as well. I have talked a little bit about this when I was a public speaking trainer. Often what would happen is you would go to a client site, often pharmaceutical companies. You would go to a client site, you would do training all day, you would train in the morning for 4 hours, you would go for lunch with the participants. The pharmaceutical company or the manufacturing company would put on lunch for you, and you would sit and have lunch with the participants. Usually it was a really nice lunch, but of course it's very carb heavy. And then, you would go back to the training room and you would finish the 4 hours of the day of training with them. And what would happen is after that carby lunch, I'd go back to the training room and everyone else would be kind of falling asleep at their desks and whatever, because that's what you do after you've had a heavy lunch and you're just sitting listening. And I would be standing at the front of the room talking about some public speaking point or some way to do something with your presentation. And I'd start to hear my stomach going gurgle, gurgle, gurgle. And I think, oh no, it started and I've still got 3 hours and 45 minutes to go before I can get out of here. What's going to happen? And so I would literally have to, when I was walking around, I'd literally have to start walking like a penguin because I couldn't trust what was going to happen. And it would just, I would be feeling like, this is going to come out any second, or, and it never did, but it's just that feeling. It's like I'm not in control of what's happening anymore. And you would be thinking, I can't trust a fart. Like I can't trust that this is going to be a fart. So it was really rough, and that would happen almost every time after lunch. But of course, you just don't learn your lesson and think, okay, well, maybe it's something I'm eating, given it always happens after lunch. And, it's only looking back on it that you realize how bad it was. And it would get worse if the students were working in groups and then someone would raise their hand and say, hey, can you help us over here? And then I'd have to make my way from one side of the room to that side of the room, concerned about accidents happening. And that was the penguin walk all the way over, so they're like, can you help me? And then they look up at me and they're all waiting expectantly and they're like, why is he walking like that? Well, I'm sure that's what was going through their minds. Why is he walking like that? And so I would waddle over to their table and hope they couldn't hear my stomach and help them out, and then waddle back to the middle of the room. So it was really tough. But fortunately, that is over. A couple of other things. I don't have eczema anymore. I used to have awful eczema, especially in winter. I'd wake up, and I guess the fact you've been really warm overnight, and then it's really, really super dry and cold outside of bed, and then that would just make me itch so badly. And, if I took even a semi-warm shower, I'd be scratching all over the place, and the backs of my legs were terrible. It was awful. That doesn't happen anymore. That's gone. Completely gone. My mood is much more stable than it was before. At work, I'm much more able to just kind of step back and not get emotionally involved in things that I'm working on, and feel like, I need to have a hand in this. I need to be part of this decision making. I need to get my ideas passed and get that put into the project and all that kind of stuff. I'm able to take a step back and go, I'm just going to do my job, and it's not that important at the end of the day. No one really cares. It's just much easier to just step back and be away from the fray and just do my job and finish. And that's so much easier. Along with stable mood, I used to suffer really bad anxiety. And this is not 100% gone, but I had anxiety to the point that, if I got a phone call from someone, my first thought is not, oh, such and such is calling me. It was always, what's wrong? It was always, there's something wrong. And you no idea how many times I answered the phone over my life and said, what's the matter? What's up? Is there a problem? Something like that, rather than, hi, how you doing? So you can imagine what people think of me, right? So it's either like someone's in trouble, someone's, touch wood, someone's died, something like that. That's the feeling when the phone rings for me, or at least it was. And if it's like, even if it's a friend calling, it was like, what are they going to cancel? What can't they go to? Or it was always, there's a problem. There's going to be a problem. So I just carried that anxiety around with me all the time. And you can imagine that kind of anxiety manifests in lots of different ways throughout your life as well. And since I've been on carnivore, that's gone down so much. That's nowhere near the level it was. I've still got work to do in that area, but it's nowhere near what it was before. And just one more that I wanted to really emphasize. The reason I started this in the first place was to get back self-control. And one thing that carnivore has really shown me is how much self-control you can have and how much better that makes you feel. When you're in control of your decisions, when you're in control of the direction you're going, when you're not just kind of floating along and just going with the flow of everything, when you're actually consciously making decisions about things, you feel so much better. It's unbelievable how much better you feel. So if for no other reason than just to have better self-control, I would recommend to anybody to go carnivore. Because that feeling of being in control of your decisions and being in control of everything you do throughout the day is so much nicer than just kind of floating along and kind of going along with your emotions here, there, and everywhere. And, I feel like doing this. And then you start doing it and then you realize you've wasted time and blah, blah, blah. So that feeling of self-control has been amazing. So I wanted to talk about some of the difficulties that I've had. And these difficulties are not specifically about these last 2 years on carnivore, but more about difficulties I've experienced with this spectrum of eating over the last 24 years, and how that might help you if you are getting started and you're finding it's hard to stick to, or you have been doing it for a long time and you've kind of fallen off the wagon a little bit. So I've basically been trying to get to this point for 24 years. I first found out about Atkins in 2000 and started doing Atkins in 2000, and I have never ever felt better than when I first did Atkins, and I could so easily contrast the difference between how I'd felt my whole life and now, the Atkins way. And I mean, it was pretty close to carnivore anyway, because I wasn't out of induction, and I was younger when I was doing it, and so I wasn't even thinking about, I need to eat my vegetables, right? So I was just doing what I found was working and making me lose weight, which was eating lots of animal products, cheese, eggs, and meat. Although I would have done even better if I'd been eating fatty meat. I tended to eat chicken a lot, just because that's what we were programmed with back then. So for 24 years, I've been trying to stick with this. And I've done low carb or keto so many times. Started, been on it for a few weeks and fallen off. Been on it for a month or so, fallen off. Been on it for 6 months, fallen off. And it's always been a frustrating experience, because you put on all that weight back on and you feel bad, and you usually add a little bit more weight into the bargain. And so I get it, it's frustrating. If that's something you are going through or something you do go through, I sympathize, I understand, I empathize, because I've been there. But I would just like to say that I think the important thing is that you don't let that discourage you. And the reason I say that is I would hate to think that you would fall off the wagon, throw up your hands in the air and just say, well, that's it, doesn't work, I'm not doing it again, I can't stick to this, whatever. Because we aren't perfect, and it takes multiple attempts at things often to actually get it right, to get to a point where we can stick to something or we can do something properly. And the only way that you actually have success is to fail a lot. It's a rare person that does something one time and goes, well, I'm a success at this. I was born to do this. This is awesome. It doesn't happen in business. It often doesn't happen in relationships. It doesn't happen in a lot of things, right? You're not a success the first time around. And so if you fall off the wagon, just accept, okay, I fell off the wagon, I'll get back to it at some point, right? Or I'll get back to it tomorrow or whatever. Just keep trying to get back to the lifestyle that you want to lead, whether that's keto, whether that's ketovore, whether that's carnivore. Just keep trying to get back to it, because the chipping away and the failures will, improve your ability to stick to it over time. It'll improve your resolve over time. And then there's going to be that one time where you just go, okay, I'm jack of this. I'm sick of the weight. I'm sick of feeling like this every day. I'm sick of my clothes not fitting. I'm sick of feeling so bad when I wake up in the morning. I'm sick of being in pain. And everything's just going to click, and you're just going to do it, right? And honestly, my advice with that is follow the approach of the steak and butter gang and just eat as much as you can of carnivore foods when you do get started, and don't allow yourself to get hungry. Even if that means putting on a little bit of weight at the start, keep yourself full, and just that gets you to the point where you can get off all the junk. And when you can get off the junk, that's what makes it a lot easier. And then your self-control builds every day. And the last thing I wanted to talk about was just some general advice from my experience, and that builds on what I've just been talking about, is don't think about this as I've got to do this for the rest of my life, or this can be months of the same food over and over again. Anything like that, because that will just make you that just instantly puts an obstacle in your path. Think about this on a day-to-day basis. Just think, I just need to get through day one without having any junk. I need to get through day one just eating red meat, eating eggs, whatever it is you can eat, right? Need to get through day one eating this only. And then that's my goal. That's my only goal. I need to get to bed tonight without eating anything but meat and eggs and cheese if you can tolerate it. So do that. And then what's going to happen is you wake up on day two and you are going to feel so much better about yourself, because the first thing you're going to think about when you wake up is, I feel better. I slept better, because you've had 24 hours without any garbage in any garbage in your system, right? Then you're going to feel good about yourself because you're going to go, I did it. That was a full day. Right? And now all you need to do is focus on getting through day two. And then when you wake up on day three, again, you're going to feel good about yourself, right? Because you're going to have that extra little bit of confidence, that extra little bit of resolve, because now it's been 2 days that you haven't had any garbage. And you feel even better than you did when you woke up on day two. And so this is awesome. I'm feeling great. Now focus on getting through day three. Just keep it a day at a time and rely more on waking up the next day and that feeling, those good feelings helping to build your resolve. Don't think of like, oh, I've got to do this for a month. I've got to do this for 3 months before I'm going to be over these cravings. Don't focus on it like that. Just go day to day. You'll build the resolve like that. Now, the second thing I would say is, if you've got pain, if you've got problems that you want or you're hoping carnivore can help you address, then start keeping a note of what they are. And I would just perhaps get an outline of a human body, or draw an outline of a human body, and when you wake up on the day you're going to start carnivore, just look at that and where's the pain? And, circle my knee, my elbow, I've got a headache, I've got whatever it is, right? My big toe, circle my big toe. There's a feeling of pain there, or whatever it is, right? Keep a note of that, and keep a fresh sheet of this paper every day. And just like note down what's improving, and try to keep the detail so that you can remember, how did it actually feel? Because one of the things that happens is, once you're 6 months into this and you're feeling great, it's also easy to forget how bad it was. And if you've got that reminder written down of just how bad it was, then you're much more likely to be able to, continue with your resolve. Because it happens to us all. We can be put in a situation where someone offers us some food at a party or something like that, and it's like, oh, I could just have a little bit of that cake. And for some of us, we can just have a little bit. For others of us, one sweet thing is going to lead to a bucket load of sweet things. And so, I need to maintain my resolve around this stuff. So if that's going to help you, I'd recommend you doing that. But definitely focus on this a day at a time if you're getting started. And you can do it. You can feel better. And the almost 500 interviews I've got on my channel to date show that you can do it, show that it works for people. And if you want to see how Anthony is addressing his stage 4 cancer with carnivore, check out this video next. He says he doesn't do wet farts anymore. I don't believe that. I've never not done a wet